Hey guys, I sure come at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. How y'all been? I'm glad that you're here because we're going to talk about one of the better epic reviver slash support champions out there in the game. One of the best healers out there in the game, and she is sure to slow down any run. That's the only downside, but we'll talk about all that and more when we share my favorite builds for RECTOR DRATH. Let's go ahead and give a couple shout outs on the request on this one. Before we do, I want to shout out you guys. A lot of you guys, unfortunately this is US only right now, but a lot of you guys supporting my channel sponsor here, Aura. They're new to the channel. They have everything: financial fraud protection, identity theft protection, privacy assistance, parental controls, everything, a VPN, antivirus, everything all in one. So guys, thank you so much for supporting that. Again, we get quite a lot of signups, so keep them coming. If you could use some internet security like yours truly and you're US based, the link will be in the show notes below. Truthfully, it's the best way that you can support me here on the channel doing what I'm doing. It does cost a lot of resources to build all of these champions. I'm not using the dev build. These are all real champions on my account that I am, some of them I already have built, some of them I'm maxing out particularly because of your requests. Can you do a guide on RECTOR DRATH? Absolutely, Tac Lempan. We have Vertical, loving these guys, actually pulled Contra. We did a guide on Contra. He obviously was leaving this comment on that video. My next vote would be RECTOR DRATH. We have Real Deal Ellen Dill. He says, great vid, would love to see a guide on Drath. I recently pulled her, no exaggeration. She supercharged my account progression. She's a monster and a half. I would tend to agree. We have Terry. I just pulled Draco. Excited to see a guide on RECTOR DRATH. So Terry just pulled Dracomorph, but all Terry wants to see is RECTOR DRATH for good reason. Support champion. Well, I shouldn't. That's not a dig at Draco. Trust me. Before we get to the kit, I mean, base stats, they're all solid, right? HP is the most important, but speed is really imperative on our support revivers, healers, right? So 109 is a really good speed, especially for an epic champion. Just wanted to point that out to begin with. The aura on this champion is resist in Doom Tower battles by 55, which is a pretty good aura, and she has a nice base resist of 30, so you're already starting out with 30 resist. You can use RECTOR DRATH as a spiderling tank as well if you build her for high resist. We won't be showing that build in this video, but it's a great anti-affinity spider tank. And again, you get that little boost on the resist as well. Attack one enemy on the A1. We have a 35, make it a 50% chance of landing decreased attack, big version on the A1, fantastic. I will say though, that is the only reason to have accuracy in this champion's kit. So some people, myself included, we already have decreased attack on another champion on our team. So in those cases, we can build her without, caring too much about accuracy, although it is nice to have, right? Even if you do already have another champion on the team, it might not be up all the time, especially on bosses. Necro Mutation, or A2. This is where things start getting really, really juicy, guys. Heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP. I want to stop there. That is a really good heal, right? When we start talking about based on this champion's max HP and we start talking about all allies on a heal, I would say like around 10%, 15% is, maybe average in terms of the healage. And then when we get to 20 or 30 or even 40 on Marichka the Unbreakable, that's when the heal starts getting really beefy. Plus you have Masteries to consider. Plus in today's build, we'll have an artifact set to consider. Plus we can book it up for even more heals. She is a healing machine, and this is not her only heal. We also place a perfect veil for 2 turns on all allies with full HP after that heal, and then place a continuous heal buff for 1 turn on all allies with less than 100% HP after the heal. So more heals and more protection. And keep in mind that Perfect Veil not only prevents your champions from being targeted, right, on single target abilities, but it also mitigates AoE damage by 15% when they're under that Perfect Veil. The same as a Strengthen, although it only applies to AoE damage. On the Spirit Form, this is her Revival. It's on a 4-turn cooldown, which is absolutely fantastic. Revives a single ally, 60% HP, 60% turn meter, places a Perfect Veil on them for 3 turns. That Perfect Veil 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown on this Revive is a really strong Revive. Moreover, we're always looking for, again, like that threshold is around like 50% HP, 50% turn meter, which makes a single target Revive really, solid. And she's got 60-60, especially on a 4-turn cooldown with the Perfect Veil for an epic champion. It's a fantastic revive ability. Master of Ghosts. Whenever an ally under a veil or perfect veil gets a turn, heals them by 10% of their max HP. I mean, that is insane. Now, anytime anybody gets a turn, as long as they're under that perfect veil or a veil, it doesn't even have to be her perfect veil or veil. So if you have another veil champion on your team, you're still going to get that heal, right? When I said she was a slow champion that will slow down your runs, this is what I'm talking about. And we'll see this in action. The animation, every time they get a turn, it adds like a second to the run. And through the duration of a run, it can add a lot of time. The only, and I mean only, downside on this champion also increases the resistance of allies under veil or perfect veil by 50. That's a really nice resistance boost as well. You add to that she has it in Doom Tower Battles by 55, so we could be getting, obviously 105 extra resist on all allies just from the passive, the Veil, and the Aura on this champion if we wanted to in Doom Tower Battles. So let me go ahead and talk about my two favorite builds for this champion. We actually have a Doom Tower Secret Room as well, a very difficult one. I think it's Knight Revenant Epics only. So we're going to go ahead and take her. This is going to be the team. It's going to be Miscreated Monster. It's going to be Thylesia. It's going to be Doom Priest, we just did a guide on 2 days ago here on the channel. And it's going to be Skull Crown for our DPS as well. All right, but back to Rector Drath. Rector Drath. We have her, and by the way, if you guys saw the stats on all those other champions, they just kind of have hand-me-down gear, so don't look too much into it. Rector Drath, though. We have a curing set. That's right. Who uses curing sets? Well, if you're ever going to use a curing set, it gives you 20% bonus to all of your heals. One of the best ways to do that is on champions who have heals on their passive, right? It's really going to add up over the duration of a longer battle. And not only do we have the heal on the passive, but we also have it on that A2 ability, right? So what curing is going to do is just going to give us basically 20% more heals. And she's putting out like, I mean, depending on where you are, right? But she's putting out already a ton of healage, and it all just snowballs and stacks up. So my favorite two sets on this champion are actually Curing and Relentless. Curing and Relentless, you can go Immortal, you can go speed sets, like all that stuff is fine. If you want to, concentrate on accuracy, you can go Perception over like a speed set or two as well. We want her fast. She is a reviver after all, but Curing is great. Why would you go Relentless? It's kind of the same reason, but from a different approach, right? On the A2, it's a 4-turn cooldown. With the extra turns, we can get this potentially to a 3-turn cooldown, and that's going to allow us to keep the Perfect Veil up longer. Not only is that great against the Head of Torment and Hydra Clan Boss, and just great in general, basically everywhere. The more perfect Veil, the better. But it's also fantastic because it synergizes with more heals from her passive because they're going to be under Veil or Perfect Veil more often, okay? So, Relentless or Curing is I'm a big fan. And honestly, if you're anything like me, you don't have like any champions or barely any champions. I had Vogoth in a curing set. I took his curing set and I moved it to Rector Drath because there's not that many champions that I would say are ideal in curing sets. I have another one built. Who did I have? Woad painted as well in a curing set. That's all I had on my entire account. Anyway, let's talk about her stat priorities. Obviously, that the heal is going to be based on 20% of her max HP. So, as close to 100k as we can get to get that massive 20k heal plus the continuous heal plus the passive heals, right? Even with 80k, we're still going to get, close to that with all the masteries and everything else, right? The curing set as well. We have some defense. Obviously, you don't want to totally neglect defense, but you do want to concentrate mostly on HP on this champion. Speed is going to be the next priority. So she's fairly easy to build, right? Especially depending on how much you care about that decreased attack on her A1 ability. So I don't care that much, again, in the way that I'm using her on if I was using her in like Clan Boss, Demon Lord, old school Clan Boss, I would probably care a lot more, depending on the team that I had around her, if it was an unkillable team. But for my preferences, I don't care that much. I want speed and I want HP, a little survivability with some defense. So to that end, we have HP on the banner, we have HP on the amulet, and we have HP on the ring. We have speed on the boots. I would never on this champ, I shouldn't say never. I guess end game you could do this, but I wouldn't advise most players sacrifice speed for HP percentage on their boots. I would pretty much go speed. We want her fast, HP percentage on the chest, and you guessed it, HP percentage on the gauntlets as well. For substats, we're looking for HP, we're looking for some speed. Resist is nice as well. I mentioned earlier that you could build her with high resist to be a spider tank. In that case, pretty easy. All we're going to do is swap out the chest piece for a resist, and if we need it, swap out the HP on the banner for a resist as well there. All right, let's go ahead and talk about blessings on this champion. You'll see that I have commanding presence. It's going to get me even more HP, 4,000 more, and more resist. Both fit beautifully with this champion. Plus, I didn't have an aura strengthener on this team anyway, and I have her 5-star blessinged out. So a 15% aura bonus is really valuable. However, if I didn't want to go, or if you already had a commanding presence or an intimidating presence on your team, there's nothing wrong with going with maybe Miracle Heal, restoring a portion of destroyed max HP whenever this champion heals himself or an ally. So we would get a 100% chance to restore max HP when healing, restoring destroyed max HP equal to 20% of the heal. So that's really nice. It kind of builds that in. Some champions, not many, but like a Marichka the Unbreakable, again, she has that built into her skill as well, but you can kind of build this into their skills by choosing it there. Another one is Heaven Cast. Debuffs placed by this champion's default skill will ignore a percentage of the target's resistance. This is a way to get around having to build her with a bunch of accuracy, right? So we can ignore 20% of the target's resistance with a 5-star, 40% of the target's resistance with a 6-star. Personally, I wouldn't go that route. If I needed accuracy, I would just go and put an accuracy banner on her or whatever, right? I wouldn't want to waste necessarily my blessing on the Heaven Cast, but that's just my personal preference. There's nothing wrong if you guys want to waste your blessing on that. So let's go ahead and build out her Masteries. So what do I want to do in today's video, guys? Listen, there's nothing wrong with giving a little bit of damage, especially if you're just trying to speed up your runs. If you happen to be using her maybe in the earlier mid-game against Demon Lord Clan Boss, going with War Master, going offense tree and coming down with War Master to get a little bit of damage out of this champion, there's nothing wrong with that. But I prefer going support and defense and just making her an absolute all-out healing support machine. What's that going to mean? We're going to start out with Steadfast, pick up a bunch of extra HP on this champion. We're going to come down to Lay on Hands, increase the value of heals this champion casts by 5% again. Healing Savior, increase the healing and shield buffs on this champion by 10% if the ally has 40% HP or less. We're going to keep going down to Merciful Aid if they're under CC debuffs, increases the heal even more. And we're going to come down to Lasting Gifts, have a chance at extending the duration of the Veil inner kit, which is really, really powerful. It's one of the best debuffs to extend. We're also going to go ahead and pick up Spirit Haste, increase speed by 8 for each dead ally. Spirit Haste going into Timely Intervention is a great combination for support champions. So we're going to go with Timely Intervention as our tier 6 mastery in this healing build. Now, I also want to pick up Rapid Response. 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10% when a buff cast by this champion removed or expires. So Rapid Response and Lasting Gifts, not only will it pertain to the Veil that she's casting, but also those continuous heals on her A2 ability as well, and obviously the Veil, the Perfect Veil on her Revival. So let's go ahead and work on the defense tree. I'm going to go with Tough Skin. And then we're going to come down with Blast Proof, mitigating AoE damage. We're going to come down with Resurgent. Again, Resurgent is, I say it every time that we talk about this mastery, but it's very, very good. 50% is very high of removing a random debuff from this champion when they lose 25% of their max HP from a single enemy's skill. That can remove even like a stun, so it's very powerful. So Resurgent, we're going to come down to Delay Death. And then, I want to note here, Solidarity, increase ally resistance by 5 for each buff placed on them by this champion. I think it's a really, really good mastery to have because she already has that increased resistance on her passive. So that just adds to that. It essentially makes it even stronger, right? So we could go with Retribution and get the decreased attack to land a little bit more frequently, but I'm going to go with Cycle of Revenge. I think this is an incredible mastery as well. 50% chance of increasing the turn meter by 15% when an ally is attacked with a critical hit. Now, critical hits happen a lot less frequently in PvE content than they do in PvP, but on a Go Second team, on a PvP arena team, you don't see her in the end game. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys, but if you throw in like a bolster set, right? Cycle of Revenge is going to proc a lot more often. Either way, getting critical hits is going to be the time that we need her the most, right? When a boss is landing a crit, which is usually around 15% crit rate on bosses in this game, when they land a crit, I mean, we're going to need Cycle of Revenge, and we're going to need Timely Intervention, and that's going to crank up her turn meter and allow her to go in there with the heal or to quickly revive your fallen comrades. So we have a choice to make up here. I think I'm going to go with I think I'm just going to go with Rejuvenation. Increase the amount of healing and the value of shields this champion receives by 5%. Obviously, she's bringing a lot of heals, even to herself, so it's gonna give us a lot of value throughout the duration of a battle. So this is the masteries that I went with, guys. We also talked about going War Master if you want a little bit more damage out of this champion in lieu of the defensive tree. So Curing Set, Speed, or Relentless, it both works. Everything works here just fine. Let's go ahead and jump into some Doom Tower. So as I said, we have Secret Room, what is it, 10? Secret Room 10 on Doom Tower Hard. Here's the team. So we have, again, Rector. She's going to lead the charge with her defensive aura, right? Going to take advantage of that. It's always good to have. Doom Priest, who, again, we did a guide on this the other day. Skullcrown, Thylesia, and Miscreated Monster. A very, very strong team. I love having two incredible... Look at that. She leads off with the A2. I was going to say two incredible healers, by the way, with Doom Priest and her on the same team. We'll see who heals more. My guess is going to be RECTOR DRATH. But you can see, look at her take forever. Every time somebody goes while they're under that veil, watch her, right? She actually has that little animation, that little giddy up in her step, if you will, and then the heal comes down on said champion, right? So that's why I said it can really kind of slow things down, as you guys can see, but it's very helpful. These champions hit really, really hard here, right? I mean, look at Skullcrown. Thank God we have two amazing passive healers and active healers on the team, right? So we'll wait for the Skullcrown to die, and we'll go on to the second wave. But it's really nice. There's going to be a lot of healage to be had here, right? And you can see the continuous heals as well. We come right back in with that Necro mutation. It worked out beautifully. It was off cooldown there to start things out. So now we have everybody under a veil. We're landing some nice stuns. I do have Skullcrown in a stun set as well. Our health meter is nice and, well, healthy. And we're going to go ahead and come in and do some damage. I like the Thylesia and Skullcrown combo too. Man, I just love Knights Revenant. They're bad guys in Raid Shadow Legends. There's no lore, by the way, on RECTOR DRATH. But they're the bad guys in Raid Shadow Legends. Demon Spawn, Undead Horde, and Knights Revenant. Especially Knights Revenant, though. I kind of like the whole aesthetic of that faction. I don't know if they're my favorite faction. Do you guys have a favorite faction? I kind of have a soft spot for dwarves. That sounds funny to say out loud. I don't know why. But I kind of like dwarves. But I guess my favorite bad guys are by far and away are going to be Knights Revenant. So we lost Miscreated Monster. No big deal. We got a great reviver on the team, right? And that's the beauty of her. Again, we talked about, I don't want to brush over Hydra Clan Boss either. You can see those heals, by the way. It was over 10k easily with 80k HP. So that's all the extra heal that we get from the curing and the masteries, right? Not to mention all of those. Every time anybody gets a turn when they're under those veils, it's really, really great, right? But what was I saying? Hydra. Man, let me just pull it up in the background here. We'll see the stats first, and we'll end on this. Let me pull it up. The Head of Torment. So, RECTOR DRATH puts out a nice, clean 646,000 in heals. That is really impressive, considering Doom Priest is also healing every single turn in a Relentless set. So, I mean, just goes to show you, she's really one of the better healers, revivers, support champions. She brings the damage mitigation, and she brings so much to the table. Just such a tremendous champion. If you're watching this video because you have her, which I assume a lot of you probably do, otherwise you're just like me, just want to chill with me for a little bit. Congratulations, especially if you just pulled her, because you have your hands on really one of the better epic support healers, revivers out there in the game. I would only put her second to Godseeker and Neri, and even that, it's an unfair comparison because they're quite different, but in a vacuum, I would pick Godseeker before RECTOR DRATH if I had to choose my favorite single target reviver out there, but RECTOR DRATH would be a close second. She's really, really good. So, Head of Torment and Hydra. Fear is the name of the game with the Torment Head. Anytime you attack him, if you're not under a Veil or a Perfect Veil buff, you'll receive a True Fear debuff, even if you have block debuffs or high resistance. He will likely be the first head to solve if he is a starting position for a Hydra season, because you will lose control of the fight pretty quickly. So, essentially, again, the special decapitation effect as well. Whenever this head is decapitated, removes all fear and true fear debuffs from all enemies and replaces them with perfect veil from enemy champions, buff for 2 turns on 2 random enemy champions. Interesting. I actually forgot that was the decapitation. I forgot that it was a placing the perfect veil. Either way, guys, so important to have a Veil or Perfect Veil champion on your team, or another game plan for the head of Torment, right? A really robust cleanser on your team, like maybe Doom Priest, right? So definitely can fill that bill in Rector Draught. Keep in mind, too, Veils in this game in Raid Shadow Legends, you might say, hey, it's on a 4-turn cooldown. Like, I don't like that it's on a 4-turn cooldown. Every Veil in Raid Shadow Legends, I mean, besides passive, every AoE Veil in this game is on a 4-turn cooldown. So just like, you know, the first champions that come to mind are going to be like Tatura, Perfect Veil, 4-turn cooldown, right? Obviously, Duchess, even one of the best champions in the game, right? Veil, 4-turn cooldown. So that's standard for the game. So it's not like it's a knock on Rector Draught by any stretch of the imagination, guys. Thank you so much for watching this guide. Keep the guide requests coming, guys, and I will make them happen. Thanks again for supporting the sponsor, Aura, of today's video and the channel here at Raid Champion Guides. Go ahead and check that out for US residents in the pinned comment as well as the description below. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a great day. Send some positive vibes and some love your way, especially if you need it today. Take care, guys.